Welcome back. It's widely believed that Ashley was pushed to her death by drug dealers. Why were the police so quick to call it a suicide? Advocates were outraged and demand changes to how police deal with violence against women. Can they work together to find solutions?
Ashley Machiskanik was from the Kwakatoos Nation in Saskatchewan. On September 15th, around 5 in the afternoon, she came crashing down out of the window of the 5th floor of the Regent Hotel in Vancouver. She was 22 years old when she died on the scene.
She had a very bubbly personality, and she was very talkative. She was very helpful with some of the other women on the street.
She was always just a super pleasant person to deal with. I just remember her as being a really nice kid.
On the very day she died, police called it a suicide and closed the investigation. The community, whose relationship to the Vancouver Police Department was already strained, responded with anger.
From our perspective, they had not learned the lesson of their own investigation of themselves in terms of how they deal with the murders, the suspicious deaths, and the disappearances of women from the downtown east side who primarily in these instances are Indigenous women.
I was very appalled and very outraged. I know it's just hearsay that there's no concrete evidence to support the allegations of a murder, but I truly believe that she did not commit suicide.
That's quite a ways up, if you look up there. And if you see that if someone drops right down, they would most likely land right here. They would just land right down here because the window, if you fell out of it, you would land here. But I'm thinking if you get pushed from that distance, she ended up over here. And she had blood right here on her forehead. And she was just breathing that she was just breathing that last breath.
Community members insist that it is a well-known practice for drug dealers to punish women with debts by throwing them out of windows.
I believe that it was due to a drug debt and that the drug dealers threw her out the window. But also it was a strong statement that this could be you.
I've seen her at her worst, and I just don't think that she would have jumped out the window with the intention of committing suicide.
Dave Dixon is a former Vancouver Police Department constable. He understands that women face abuse and intimidation in this community, but he hasn't heard of them being thrown out of windows over drug debts.
The dealers down here, they're quite vicious, and they'll beat women, they'll actually sexually assault them, and they'll cut their hair off. But I've never heard of any instances where they're throwing women out of the window for drug debts.
Members of the February 14th Women's Memorial March Committee say they have told the police about women who were pushed out of windows in the past. When Ashley's death was deemed a suicide, they had questions and attempted to meet with Chief of Police Jim Chu.
We were going to hold a memorial for Ashley at the location where she died, behind the Regent Hotel on Hastings. And from there that we would march over to the police station and rally outside to ask questions and deliver a letter to the Vancouver Police Department stating that we wanted to have a meeting with them to discuss it.
Found out after the fact that Jim Chu was not going to speak to us. He wasn't going to speak to us. And that they mobilized patrol. And they called everybody that was off back to work. And that to deal with the 7 women that were in the police department who were asking questions about the murder and the investigation of the murder of a woman. So, and they moved full into, I don't know how they described their tactical protocols, but they were concerned about a riot. I mean, that's really how they were operating.
Jim Chu didn't show up, and Angela was arrested along with 2 other women.
It's a new day, and that there are a number of women, family members, activists, community members, as well as men, who are tired in watching the ways in which law enforcement are disregarding the deaths and disappearances of women. Subsequently, we've had the opportunity, to have meetings with the chief and with other members, of the brass of the Vancouver Police Department. And we've been, the charges have not been, proceeded. There's no charges with Crown to this point.
We care about the people we police. We care about the people on the downtown east side. We know that there's a large number of incidents involving violence against women in the downtown east side. And I want to encourage people to come forward.
Where's the answer?
Many community members took advantage of the meeting to voice their concerns.
There's a lot of anger. There's a lot of frustration. There's a lot of unanswered questions.
We've challenged the police department in a strong way about their attitudinal racism and their attitudinal sexism, which is been clearly demonstrated in all kinds of ways, and I have observed a shift within the brass, that there is some sense that some light bulbs have gone off for them.
Her death was a catalyst for some of the changes that are happening now in the community and some of the social action that was generated from that.
The biggest challenge in the investigation of these cases is protecting the women who might dare to break through the code of silence that rules the neighborhood.
Absolutely, there's a lot of fear of retaliation from drug dealers, and how can we ask people to come forward if they live in this community, and especially if they have a substance abuse problem where they have to access this community to get their needs met. And
for as little as $30 and $40, I've seen women get their hair cut off, and quite brutally. I've seen beatings. Women talk regularly about being beat up for $30 and $40 drug debts, and even sexual assaults, as a result of the same amount of money. It's a very low amount of money for what level of violence is aimed at them.
In this neighborhood, it sends a message to other people that don't pay their drug debts that this potentially could happen to them as well.
There's a huge code of silence down here that is so thick that it prevents a lot of the women from coming forward to even say anything. And then there are a few who are really so scared, that they'll come to us and ask us to help them get out of town.
There is some hope that a tip line staffed by women where people can share information anonymously might be one way to break the code of silence.
They created a tip line that was first called the Guardian Project, which has now been called Sister Watch.
we felt that the Guardian Project reflected colonialism and hierarchy, and that we wanted to equalize the power imbalances. That some of the ways to do that is to change the name.
Well, I think the government's got to step into better services for the women. Places like right now, at 3 o'clock in the morning, if something happens, there's literally no place the women can go to report something. Most of the phones down here don't work.
A lot of Aboriginal people, they come to the cities to escape poverty, family violence, and to try to seek out a better life for themselves. And I could relate to why, Ashley would want to come to a city.
I met a lot of kids down here, and unfortunately, a lot of them have passed away because, and it's the same old story. The system lets them down, whether it's the mental health system, the Ministry of Family Services. I mean, these kids deserve to be looked after.
Ashley was a human being, and she was somebody's sister, she was somebody's auntie, and she was a beautiful Aboriginal woman, and that her death is not going to be in vain, because we are going to work our damnedest to make changes and to be able to have her death as a catalyst for some of the changes in the social movement today.